you ever been hurt by someone you loved deeply? Maybe it was a friend who turned away, a family member who broke your trust, or someone you gave your heart to who didn't protect it. In moments like that, love feels impossible. It feels safer to close your heart, to protect yourself, to stop giving. But Jesus didn't love that way. He loved fully, even when it cost him everything. He showed kindness to those who misunderstood him. He forgave the very people who betrayed him. And on the cross, with a broken body and a bleeding heart, he looked at the ones who hurt him and whispered, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." That's not weakness. That's the strongest kind of love the world has ever seen. And in this broken world, we need that kind of love more than ever. Today, we're going to learn how to love like Jesus, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. 1. Love first, even when it hurts. Most people wait to be loved before they love back. We wait for a sign, for an apology, for proof that it's safe. Because let's be honest, loving first is risky. What if they take it for granted? What if they don't return it? What if they hurt you? And yet, Jesus never waited. He didn't wait until people were worthy. He didn't wait for perfect behavior or perfect timing. He loved first, again and again. Think of the leper who came to him in desperation, covered in wounds, isolated from society, unseen, untouchable, unloved. Everyone else stepped back. Jesus stepped forward, and before he healed the man, he touched him. That touch alone was healing, because it said, "I see you. You matter. You're not alone." Jesus didn't need to touch him to perform a miracle. He touched him because love moves first, because compassion doesn't wait. And then there's the Samaritan woman at the well. She had 5 broken relationships behind her. She came to the well at noon, alone, because she didn't want to face the judgmental stares of others. But Jesus met her there, right in the heat of her shame. He didn't bring up her past to condemn her. He brought it up to free her. He offered her living water before she ever asked for it. He gave her dignity before she gave him worship. He started with love, because that's what divine love does. It leads. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't ask, "Do you deserve this?" It asks, "What do you need most right now?" And here's the truth. Loving first is not weak. It's one of the most powerful things a human soul can do. It's what heals broken relationships. It's what silences hate. It's what makes you more like Jesus. But let's be honest, it will hurt sometimes. When you love first, you're opening your heart without guarantees. You're showing up with softness in a hard world. And yes, you might get wounded. Jesus did, but he loved anyway. Not because it was easy, but because it was right. So if you're holding back love, waiting for someone to earn it, maybe today is the day to lead. Be the first to speak gently. Be the first to forgive. Be the first to see the pain beneath someone's silence. Because every act of love that moves first echoes the heart of Christ, and the world needs more of that. 2. Forgive deeply, even when they don't deserve it. Some wounds go deeper than words. Some betrayals cut so close they take your breath away. And when someone breaks your trust, your heart doesn't just hurt, it closes. The world tells us to hold on to that pain, to keep the grudge, to make them earn our forgiveness, or beg for it. Because somehow withholding grace feels like power. But Jesus showed us something entirely different. Hanging on the cross, nails through his hands, a crown of thorns digging into his head, mocked, beaten, abandoned. He looked at the very people who put him there. The soldiers, the scoffers, the leaders who lied. And he didn't curse them. He didn't call down angels to fight for him. Instead, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Let that sink in. He forgave while the pain was still fresh, while the wound was still bleeding, while they were still laughing at him. That kind of forgiveness isn't logical. It's not natural. It's supernatural. Because forgiveness in the kingdom of God isn't about fairness. It's about freedom. When you forgive, you're not saying what they did was okay. You're not forgetting the pain or pretending it didn't hurt. You're choosing to release the power it has over you. You're saying, you don't get to control my spirit. You don't get to live rent-free in my heart. I refuse to carry this bitterness one more day. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest form of spiritual self-defense. Because bitterness will rot your soul. Anger will wear you down. And hatred, even when justified, will never lead to peace. Jesus forgave, not because they deserved it, but because his heart was too full of love to carry hate. And if you want to live like him, you'll need to forgive like him. Even when they don't say sorry, even when they repeat the same behavior, even when it hurts to let it go. Why? Because forgiveness sets you free. It clears the space in your heart where healing can finally happen. It reclaims your energy, your joy, your inner peace. And no one, not even the one who hurt you, deserves to take that from you. So today, ask yourself, who am I still carrying? Whose name still brings a sting to my heart? And what would it look like to finally let them go? Not for them, but for you. And for the God who forgave you first. 3. See the wounded behind the wounders. It's easy to see people's actions. It's harder to see what's behind them. When someone lies to you, insults you, betrays you, what you remember most isn't their pain, it's yours. But Jesus had a different way of seeing. He didn't just see what people did. He saw what they carried, the fear, the shame, the brokenness that led them to break others. When the Roman soldiers mocked him, when they struck him, when they nailed him to wood, he didn't just see cruelty. He saw confusion. He saw hearts darkened by systems of power and fear. He saw sons who didn't know they were lost. And even then, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." That's the heart of Jesus. Compassion in the face of cruelty. Vision beyond violence. Because behind every person who wounds you is a person who has been wounded. No child is born with hatred. No heart starts off hard. But over time, pain hardens softness. Abandonment builds walls. And if healing never comes, that pain spills out on others. When you start to see that, when you pause and ask, what kind of pain would cause them to act this way? You shift from judgment to mercy. It doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you stay silent or pretend it didn't hurt. It simply means you choose to understand instead of only reacting. You choose clarity over condemnation. And that choice frees you. Because when you stop seeing enemies and start seeing wounded people, your heart softens, your bitterness fades, and your soul begins to heal. Jesus didn't let the pain of others define him, but he let compassion guide him through it, and we're called to do the same. So the next time someone lashes out, ask yourself, what's the wound behind their words? What fear are they hiding behind that anger? You might never know the full story, but just asking the question will change you. It turns a hard moment into a holy one. Because when you see people through the eyes of Jesus, even your worst moments can become sacred ground. 4. Speak in grace, not in rage. There's a moment in the Gospels that says more through silence than any speech could. Jesus stands before the authorities, accused, slandered, mocked. The crowd is hungry for blood. Religious leaders twist his words. Pilate waits for a response. But Jesus doesn't lash out. He doesn't defend himself with anger. He doesn't plead or curse or explode. He stays silent. And in that silence, there was more strength than 1,000 shouts. Because silence, when it's chosen from a place of peace, is not weakness. It's restraint born of power. We live in a world of reactions. People speak quickly, text quickly, post quickly. Everyone wants the last word, the loudest voice, the sharpest comeback. But Jesus didn't fight like that. He didn't match rage with rage. He responded with grace, even to lies, even to violence. Why? Because he wasn't trying to win arguments. He was revealing a different kind of kingdom, one where power doesn't come from control, but from peace, from being grounded, from knowing exactly who you are in God. When you're secure in your identity, you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to rage to prove you're right. Grace becomes your language, not to let others walk over you, but to walk through fire without being burned inside. There is great strength in choosing kindness, when cruelty is easier. There is quiet power in pausing, breathing, and letting God speak for you. So next time someone pushes your buttons, when a conversation heats up, when someone wrongs you and your pride wants to rise, try what Jesus did. Breathe, stay still, speak softly, or don't speak at all. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it means you're letting heaven fight for you. Grace doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're no longer controlled by anger. Let your words reflect the peace you've been given. Let your silence be full of wisdom, not fear. And remember, every time you choose grace instead of rage, you become more like the one who said nothing and changed everything. 5. Choose presence over protection. There are moments in life when love gives you a choice: to show up or to shut down, to lean in or to walk away. And in those moments, the easier path will always be protection. Protect your heart, protect your energy, protect your peace by pulling away, by not getting involved, by staying safe. But Jesus chose something far harder. On the final week of his life, he knew exactly what was coming. He knew the betrayal, the mocking, the pain, the cross. And still, he got on a donkey and rode straight into Jerusalem, not away from the pain, but into it. Not to prove a point, but to fulfill a purpose. Why? Because love doesn't run. Love stays. Not to be abused, not to be defeated, but to redeem. Jesus chose presence over protection because he understood something we often forget. Healing can't happen from a distance. You can't restore what you're unwilling to sit with. You can't bring light into darkness unless you're willing to enter the darkness. And sometimes, love means being there, even when it hurts. Being there for a child who's pushing you away. Being there in a marriage that feels dry. Being there for a friend going through crisis, even when they don't know how to receive you. It's not about staying in unhealthy patterns. It's not about tolerating abuse or pretending things are fine. It's about showing up with grace, staying emotionally present, remaining soft-hearted, when everything in you wants to numb out and retreat. Because love doesn't always fix everything instantly. But love never abandons. Jesus showed us that being present, even in the most painful moments, can be the most powerful form of love. He didn't save us from a distance. He stepped into our mess, into our story, into our suffering. And when you choose to stay, to be fully present with someone in their pain without fixing, without fleeing, you reflect that same love. It takes strength to protect yourself, but it takes far greater strength to be present with an open heart. So ask yourself today, where have I been pulling away? Not out of wisdom, but out of fear. And what would it look like to show up again? Not to be harmed, but to be a vessel of healing? 6. Give without expecting return. One of the most powerful stories Jesus ever lived is also one of the quietest. He healed 10 men with leprosy, 10 outcasts, 10 lives restored in an instant. And yet, Only one came back to say thank you. One. No grand celebration, no parade of gratitude, just silence from 9 lives he had just saved. And Jesus asked, "Weren't there 10 of you? Where are the other 9? But here's the miracle. He still healed them. He didn't take the healing back. He didn't hold a grudge. He gave freely, knowing most of them would walk away without even looking back. Because real love doesn't wait for a thank you. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't give to be seen. It gives because giving is part of who you are in God. We live in a world that runs on transactions. I give you this, so you'll give me that. I'll love you if you love me back, but that's not how heaven works. That's not how Jesus loved. His love was unconditional, undeserved, unreciprocated, again and again, yet still constant. He fed people who would forget him. He served disciples who would abandon him. He wept over cities that would reject him, and he gave himself fully, knowing many would never choose him in return. That kind of love doesn't come from emotion. It comes from identity, from knowing who you are and whose you are. Because when your love flows from God's love, you don't run dry based on other people's response. You give even when they don't notice. You show up even when they're silent. You serve even when there's no applause, not because you're weak, but because your source is deeper than people's approval. That's divine love, and it's the kind of love that changes the world. So today, ask yourself honestly, are there places in your life where you've stopped giving because you felt unseen, unappreciated, ignored? Let Jesus remind you, your value isn't found in how others respond to your love. Your calling is to love anyway, to give, not for recognition, but for redemption, to plant seeds of kindness, and trust that God sees it all. Because in the end, only one thank you really matters. And it's the one you'll hear when he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Let love be the last word. We've walked through 6 powerful ways to love like Jesus, not just in words, but in how we live, in how we respond to pain, to people, to pressure. We learn to love first, even when it costs us something. Forgive deeply, even when they don't deserve it. See the pain behind the behavior of those who hurt us. Speak with grace, even when rage feels justified. Stay present, even when leaving feels easier. Give freely, without demanding anything in return. None of these are easy. In fact, they're almost impossible, unless we're drawing love from the source that never runs dry. Because the truth is, we can't love like Jesus until we've been loved by Jesus. And the good news is, we already have. He loved us first. When we were broken, when we were running, when we didn't understand it yet. His love reached us there, and now it invites us to do the same for others. So if you're wondering where to begin, start by receiving that love. Let it heal the places that make you want to shut down. Let it soften what life has hardened. Let it move through you, so it can move through the world. And maybe today, loving like Jesus means something simple. A quiet act of kindness, a phone call you've been putting off, a forgiveness that no one asked for, but still needs to be given. If this message stirred something in you, share it with someone you care about. Let's sow love into a hurting world. One act at a time. And remember this, you are not alone. You are not unloved. Jesus sees you, he's with you, and he's already loving through you.